Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Superpower Your Workforce with AI for Super Value. Before we get started, I'd like to review a few housekeeping details. Today's webinar is being recorded and an online archive of today's event will be available a few days after the session. If you have trouble seeing the slides at any time during the presentation, please press F5 to refresh your screen on a PC or Command R if you're using a Mac. You may ask a question at any time during the presentation by typing your question into the Q&A box on the right side of your screen and pressing Enter. And finally, I'd like to remind you of AHIP's antitrust statement located in the handout section at the bottom of your screen. We will, as always, comply with that statement. Among other things, the antitrust statement prohibits us from discussing competitively sensitive information. We're very fortunate to have with us today Nick Lochner, Ann Cazares, Claire Weffelmeyer, and Sarah Lobo. Nick is Managing Director at Accenture with 28 years of experience delivering large-scale projects across several industries, including human and machine interaction, talent management, and innovating the future of learning. Ann is the Learning and Quality Leader at Anthem with 21 years of healthcare experience, aligning learning and human performance solutions to business priorities across functions, products, and lines of business. Claire is a Principal Director in Accenture's Health and Public Service Talent and Organization practice with more than 20 years of consulting experience in health, pharma, and retail industries. And Sarah is Manager in Accenture's Health and Public Service Talent and Organization practice with more than a decade of experience helping retail and health clients navigate transformational change. At this time, I would like to turn the floor over to our speakers. Welcome.
And thank you, Monica, and hello, everybody. This is Nick Lochner. Really excited to be here. And before we jump in, I would just like to thank AHIP and our moderator, Monica, and my co-presenters. We've got a pretty exciting topic today around superpowering your workforce for super results. And it's not a coincidence, or I guess it is a coincidence, I'll admit to that it is also May the 4th. So May the 4th be with you. That is a superpower, and we hope that you see some correlation to the human and machine interaction. And so I'd like to just start off by saying, throwing out a number out there that says 93%, which a recent study, a survey of health industry executives have AI projects on their agenda. 93% of them do. AI has been around for a while, artificial intelligence. However, it really is seeing exponential growth and exponential impact in what's happening with it in today's world and today's marketplace. But if I really simplify what we're going to talk about from a superpowering standpoint, let me just simplify by saying, so what does AI and what does superpowering your workforce mean? It's a simple way to think about it is, historically, machines have found ways to automate. Previously, it was manual labor. Then machines started to provide us much more information and at more scale and much more information at additionally more scale. And machines started to think for themselves and make decisions. What we're talking about today, or one of the key phrases to think about, is the amplification of in how AI, how machines and humans work together to amplify and to get to greater outcomes. If we were together and I could see the audience and we would talk about, and I'd ask you to raise your hand, it would be, if anybody has read the Human and Machine book that Paul Daugherty and James Wilson wrote, it came out late 2018, early 2019, and they make the case that there are 8 fusion skills, quote unquote fusion skills, that basically provides the ability for combining strengths of a person and a machine to create a better outcome than either could have done alone. And that's what we mean by superpower. And so our focus today then is to dive into some of these findings, specifically to the predicted impact of AI on the workforce. And so we conducted some research, some thinking that focused on specific skills, both today and into the future. And we, in particular, dove into health and health payer skills. And we looked across all of the roles in a health payer, and we broke those roles into tasks. And we then analyzed those roles against predictive models, using data science, using machine learning, using publicly available data of all the job descriptions of Fortune 1000 companies, of thinking about what the skills and roles are of in the future. And we started assigning value to those roles, and we started breaking the impact of those roles, or what the impact of AI will be having on those specific activities and therefore those roles. What we found was over 90% of the activities, we expect workers and a workforce to be impacted from AI, or will be impacted from AI. So 90% of the roles will be impacted from AI, and there's at a high level 3 impacts. The role could be automated, the role could be augmented, or the role could be adaptive. And we will talk a little bit about what those findings were, what we're seeing, and how you can then superpower your workforce. And with that, that's the introduction. I'd like to hand it over to the team of folks that worked on that. And one other thing is just make sure if you do have questions, we're really looking forward to what questions we get. Please feel free to ask as you go along. And let me hand it over to Claire Wuffelmeyer to take us forward. Claire?
Great. Thanks, Nick. I think to get started, we actually want to learn a bit about you. And Monica, I think we can go to the first polling question, please.
Thank you. As you can see, a poll has appeared on your screen. Please make sure you are not in full screen mode in order to participate in that poll and to see it pop up on the right-hand side of your screen. And the question reads, which of the following tools has your organization invested for use by your non-IT, non-technical workforce? So we would love it if you would check the top 2. So go ahead and choose 2 of your top 2 choices. We have software as a service, robotic process automation, secure sandbox environments, low-code, no-code platforms, or other. So once again, which of the following tools has your organization invested for use by your non-IT, non-technical workforce? And choose up to 2. And we certainly appreciate your feedback, your input. It gives us a good idea of who the audience is. So we'll pause for just a few moments while we assemble all of your answers in. Again, it will appear on the right-hand side of your screen. Go ahead and click your top 2. And we'll go ahead and finish up, and I will turn it over to our speakers to present those numbers to you.
Yep, and thank you for that. Looks like we've got the numbers coming in, and software as a service, 34% is leading the way. We've got RPA is 23%, secure sandbox environments at 16%, low-code, no-code platforms at 9%, and other at 18%. And again, if we were in person, I would love to hear anecdotes and stories about what you're seeing. You can always ask questions. But we are definitely seeing an uptick from an AI standpoint across the board in all of these areas and in additional areas. And so I think this gives us at least an idea. It's not a surprise to me that SaaS is leading the way. With that, let's go to, we have a second question that we want to get your input on to follow this one. And so let's dive into that second question.
Thank you once again. The next question has appeared on the right-hand side of your screen. Go ahead and use the radio buttons to click your top 2 answers there. And the question reads, what excites you most about AI? Is it reducing time spent on manual tasks, freeing up talent for strategic work, replacing of ancient systems, introducing cutting-edge technology to my organization, using AI and data to drive decision-making, or other? Again, choose your top 2. What excites you most about AI? Again, we certainly appreciate your feedback and your input. And I will go ahead and turn it back over to our speaker to let you know how all of your answers have turned out. Thank you so much.
Perfect, and thank you, Monica. And I see the numbers still coming in, but at a high level. Well, I'll just give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 more second. Okay. It looks like reducing time spent on manual tasks is leading the way right now. That's at 32%. It's been pretty close, actually, in watching the numbers come in. And what's interesting is there are 0%, no other answers for other. So we've got 32% for reducing time spent on manual tasks, 24% for both freeing up talent for strategic work and using AI and data to drive decision making. 14% for cutting edge technology, and 6% for replacement of ancient systems. And what, I found this question interesting, and you'll see in the research and in the discussions that we have, we took an angle of freeing up talent. That was a key focus for us, is how do you free up talent? How do you free up tasks? And because the idea is individuals who you are freeing up often are the ones that you will be providing, quote unquote, those superpowers to by introducing and using AI and data to drive decision making, but that's the human and machine connection of decision making. And so, I find all of these answers are possibilities. But when you're listening to the rest of our discussion, I think you'll hear a little bit more around the freeing up of talent and then superpowering the workforce for decision making. And with that, thank you for that. We do have a couple more poll questions coming up as we go along. Helps very, very much to get a feel for what you're saying. And again, feel free to provide questions. And I will now hand it over to Claire to get into a little more of the meat of the discussion. Claire?
Great. Thanks, Nick. So our research, this is kind of the big headline I want to make sure everyone sees here. Our research, which analyzed the degree to which automation and intelligent technologies could disrupt current ways of working, identified that a payer could potentially unlock $1 billion annually for investment for every 10 million members served by a health payer. How do we determine this? So what we did, as Nick mentioned before, we analyzed the key task and time distribution data across all the key payer roles, which included front office, such as sales, operations, including call center reps, claims processors, and the like, and medical management functions like care coordinators, provider data analysts, as well as the corporate roles in HR, IT, and finance. And using the data science and the analytic capabilities Nick alluded to, we really work to apply insights from the publicly available technology, workforce, and cost data. And as a result, the analysis showed us that AI and these intelligent technologies could free up, or as we like to say, disrupt 55% of a health payer's workforce capacity. So Nick talked about it's going to probably impact 90% of their role, but you can kind of see what we're showing here is you'll be able to disrupt 55% of the workforce capacity. So how do you use that capacity? How do we use that to superpower the human potential? So, and with AI continually learning and technology advancing, we expect even greater outcomes in the not too distant future. So this is just the start of what we think the opportunity is. So where do we find the value? What roles do we see are opportunity areas? So this analysis shows us our highest opportunity value areas for payers based on two factors. One is the automation or disruption potential. What's the level of augmentation, right? This is where the human and machine come together with analytics or dashboards and the like. Or automation, and that's where the task gets automated entirely, that AI could have based on the work or tasks done by humans now. The y-axis is really the value potential, the loaded salary costs, benefits, and average number of people typically in that role. And so you'll see in this analysis, there are opportunities across a variety of areas in a payer. From an operations perspective, with the introduction of technologies such as chat box, Pega for workflow to automate the workflow, data and analytics, it's really simplifying the process by which claims processors and call center reps, it really simplifies how they need to find, share, update, collect information. In the front office, what you'll see for like sales and account managers and underwriters, with the introduction of technologies like Salesforce, it's really automating the work they do to collect data and do analysis to manage client requests and needs, manage processes for generating new business and successful renewals, including proposal generation, negotiation, sale closure. So a lot of this work is really being augmented and really streamlining those processes. In the clinical or med management area, we see care coordinators and provider data analysts, credentialing and networking analysts, as you'll see here. A lot of the work that they do to, generate member communication, arrange for support services, do referrals, do updates to tracking documents, reports, and databases. Advances in the patient management, clinical management, and care delivery systems are really augmenting or streamlining a lot of what they do today. So what do we do with this extra capacity? How do we superpower our workforce using this extra capacity? And payers have long embraced AI to modernize processes. The challenge now is to really rethink how to use the intelligent technologies to elevate or reimagine human work as we know it. How do we use these new technologies to elevate the human experience? How can we get our workforce to use the technology to provide a better service experience to our members, providers, and employers? It's really all about four things. One is, as Nick talked about before, how do you combine the human and machine? How do you combine the human mind creativity with the machine metal, so to speak, to amplify and turn that human potential into superhuman power? The second thing is, how do you kind of rethink the process itself, the experience itself, quite frankly? How do you use the technology to design novel experiences to better service our key stakeholders? And then the third, how to use machine metal to synthesize or personalize information to unlock humans to use their creativity to provide higher value, consultative, strategic work and really delight our members, providers, and employers. And then, fourth and more importantly, how do we help provide more satisfying work and work experiences for our workforce? And I think what you're doing to superpower your call center reps is really relevant here.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. What you spoke about is really the core of how Anthem thinks about technology, which is to provide those great experiences for our customers and our associates through digital solutions. And we do that through reimagining and elevating that human work. So our vision is to be very innovative, valuable, inclusive partner and improving lives and communities, right? And we do that by simplifying healthcare. And I think AI is a place where we can really simplify healthcare, not just for our associates, but also our consumers. And so that engagement center, the place where the chats and the phone calls come in, are really an important focal point because of the impact that they make every day on our customers' experience, right? They are that voice, that face of a company. And because it's so important, they are truly sometimes those people who help our customers navigate the complexity of the healthcare experience. The customer service reps support customers during their highest of highs and their lowest of lows, and they are truly that human connection. So when we think about reimagining roles and elevating the work and providing a better service experience for our customers and associates, technology plays a really key role there. One of the ways that we can do that is really simplifying the process for the associates themselves, so such as serving up information in the flow of work. So an associate is not trying to navigate multiple screens, multiple systems, because doing that allows that associate to really focus on what's happening on that call. They're not fumbling around. They can focus more on the human and not maybe a transaction or a task, right? And they can anticipate then. So when we talk about elevating that work, this isn't just to serve you for your question or that you're calling in about, but now that I'm more confident, more capable, I'm getting information served up in the flow of my work, I can anticipate. I can help, navigate something on a much more human level. And, even in learning, you can use artificial intelligence to allow learners to practice those skills to fluency before they ever have a real human transaction or interaction, I should say. They're building those empathy skills and, again, elevating that experience for our customers. And having that kind of experience prior to real life really allows associates to build their confidence, their capabilities sooner, which translates to better experiences, not only for them, right, as a new associate to a company, but also for our customers.
Thank you, Anne. I think that's a great story. So what does this mean for the future of work? So, the space where humans and machines come together does not always result in net job losses. In fact, we create new roles and experiences that boost performance. And so when you look at other industries over the histories, like Nick talked about, we're the banking and introducing of ATMs, it's really all about shifting to higher value work. So in this case, in banking, instead of having tellers, do simple transactions, deposits, providing money, the workforce really shifted to providing support and guidance on financial products and other high-value services. In the legal profession, it really streamlined the data collection process so that paralegals could instead really help the lawyers and really think about, what's our best argument for the case. In property and casualty, what we're seeing happening right now is that instead of underwriters spending all this time collecting, synthesizing data, putting together complex spreadsheets and coming together, we now have powerful data analytic tools where they can take a look at a dashboard and they can really spend time interpreting, analyzing, doing scenarios with the data to really think about how to recommend and almost shift left to recommend better products to insure a house, home, car in a way that's tailored to an individual needs. And then finally in health, I think we're already starting to see how the workforce, particularly the role of the call center rep, can really evolve its role using technology to provide more personal member services using things like the chats and some of the AI capabilities we have in place. So this creates a big web of opportunity, and it's very exciting to see. By unlocking this capacity with AI, we can really give the payer workforce superpowers to better serve our clients and perform higher value work, and really unleash their own human potential to do exciting, meaningful work, and an opportunity to develop those highly valued skills and fulfill the aspirations many of us have who work in health. How can we really help provide members with information and support that they need to maintain or improve their health? How can we change our work up to enable providers to deliver needed care and health outcomes to their patients? How do we enable employers to provide competitive health insurance and benefits and coverage that meets their employee needs and have a healthy and productive workforce? Giving our workforce these new capabilities, by melding their creativity with the machine metals, we like to say, can really lead to happier workforce, more engaged workforce, and hopefully increase in business performance. So we do have some examples of what we think the art of the possible is. We see some of these roles evolving. Before we start, we'd like to see where you're implementing technology today. Monica, over to you.
Thank you. Another poll has popped up on your view. As you can see to the right of the slide deck, you see the next polling question, and it reads, where are you implementing AI today? So again, check your top two. We have medical management, back office, which is enrollment, billing, claims processing, etc. We have front office, sales and account management and underwriting, corporate functions, HR, IT, finance, legal, compliance, or other. So once again, choose your top two answers. We have where are you implementing AI today? So we'll go ahead and give you a few moments to log your answers. And again, we appreciate your input and your feedback. Where are you implementing AI today? Medical management, back office, front office, corporate functions, or other? And we'll turn it back over to our speakers to go ahead and address all of your answers. Thank you.
Okay. So it looks like we've got the responses in. Medical management, 21% of you are looking at that. Back office, 45%. Front office, 11%. And in corporate functions, it looks like we have 13% and 11% in the other category. So definitely see a lot of you applying AI. We see a lot of that ourselves, with almost half of you looking at the back office functions, and I think that's where a lot of things have started. But certainly a lot of opportunity ahead in the other areas as well. So now I'd like to turn it over to Sarah Lobo. And Sarah's going to be sharing some examples of some of the high potential roles we highlighted and how human work can be injected or amplified with technology to help payers improve health and health service in novel ways. Sarah, over to you.
Thanks, Claire. I'd love to share a little bit more around the details of our research, specifically highlighting a couple of the key, payer roles that we saw had high impact, whether that was a role being augmented, automated, or, really adapted. So the first role I'd like to, start with is, the function around sales and account management. Our research showed that 54% of sales and account management roles can really be freed up with AI. What does that, really mean here? If we think about the role that our sales and account management teams are playing today, they're really constantly fighting fires, just to jump through, admin issues, navigate, cross-functional work, working with other teams like contracts and products and underwriting to get, things signed and out the door. There's a lot of those manual processes involved in today's work, whether it's, manual entry of tedious data like demographics or, leveraging Excel spreadsheets to manage through account outreach and proposal history. So what we're really seeing is that AI can help to empower our sales and account management teams, helping them to be more strategic thinkers and really leading them to stick sales more with their customers. Tools like Salesforce have really helped to streamline a lot of that information sharing, breaking down some of those silos that we're seeing as the nature of the work is very cross-functional. But what AI can really do is take the data in those systems like Salesforce and really derive insights from historical data, making predictions and even recommendations on places that we can upsell or, an area that we may want to look at because our product offering doesn't meet our customers' expectations. These insights are really, truly what's transforming our sales workforce. They now have the insights in their hands before key client conversations, which really allow them to be more strategic, thinking about the relationship building aspect of their role, thinking about, how they should have a conversation and when to, present new information. Not only does this help kind of both our sales executives and account teams to be more prepared to sell the right content, it also helps us to personalize the sales to the customers, which leads to a better customer experience, helping with sticky sales, and really, leading to more wins at the end of the day. The next role I'll speak a little bit more about from our research was member enrollment. So our research found that 86% of member enrollment roles will be augmented or automated with the introduction of AI. Member enrollment roles will really change from being very kind of inflexible in nature today to being more agile and more nimble to the changing demands of, the customer and the payer. A lot of the role today is spent, managing the enrollment process, managing EDI files, making sure that, tables are filled out with accurate member data and information. So there's a lot of just tedious manual, work that's involved that can be, enhanced through using AI. Automated benefits setup and processes, will really change the way that our member enrollment teams function, taking away a lot of that, day-to-day manual labor. But what it really will do, and it'll change, is allow those resources to really be more strategic. They can be present to audit the information that's coming out of the enrollment files, making sure to validate, looking for fallout and where they can solution or come up with better solutions, learning from the data at hand. By default, I think the member enrollment roles will be freed up from these tasks, which allows them to take on more advisory roles, thinking about, the customer experience, redesigning some of those upfront processes when they're seeing, fallout issues, and helping them solution rather than being, reactive. And the last role that I'd like to go into a little bit detail from our research is really the call center rep, which I know we heard a little bit about earlier in our conversation, but as we traditionally think about the call center rep, they're truly that, they've traditionally been the sole face for the customer. They're reactively having to intake calls while quickly trying to discern stakeholder requests to solution right on the spot. Our reps, we heard earlier, probably get dizzy because they're toggling from screen to screen and they're moving from one legacy system to the next, on the hunt, really, for the right information in a very fast manner. And because of this, reps spend so much time searching through the maze of information that's out there that they don't have that time to spend on personalizing the interaction that they're having. Really, providing the human approach and building rapport with their stakeholders. What AI can really allow is for a call center to be more proactive. It can provide the right data and the right insights that a call center rep needs to be able to answer and meet the member where they are. Tools like chatbots, which we heard a little bit about earlier, can really help, triage a lot of those simple issues, questions, and concerns, allowing really the work of our call center reps to transform to be more focused on complex cases. So really, our call center reps aren't, having to spend time on, solutioning through tasks that can be done through self-service tools. What this means is it can really free up time to focus on building connections with stakeholders, being present in the moment, and really spending the time building the empathy and human connection. Our call center reps will be needing to, be health partners to those members who are calling in, and having more time to really focus on building the trust and the relationship. And I know you talked about earlier kind of the Anthem work you're doing around the call center transformation. Can you share a little bit more about, how you're thinking about the future role of the call center rep, and maybe some of the skills you're redefining or looking to for the future rep?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And I loved what you just said about being the health partner, right? Because that's very different than I have a question, I give an answer. And as you said, with more self-enablement, where customers are getting information with apps, chatbots, the website, et cetera, it means that the work itself of that associate is evolving. And so the skills that they need are going to be very different as we continue to evolve, because healthcare in and of itself is not simple. And because that simple is getting pulled out of the system, and the role itself and the types of calls that we're getting or chats are more complex, we really have to think about what is that worker of the future? What is the work of the future? And what are the skills that they need in order to be successful? And what we'll also see is, as more Gen Zs move into the workforce, this also presents new considerations for skilling talent. Most young adults can stay on their parents' insurance, right, until their late 20s. They may not have had to navigate their own health issues themselves. Maybe they may not have had to support aging parents or really sick relatives, and had to navigate the complexity of healthcare as a consumer. So that is something else to consider, is as the work is changing, and the people that you're bringing in who may not have experience in this complex world. So some of the things that we've been thinking about is really the skills that they will need to anticipate questions, right? So if someone is going to have a particular medical procedure, knowing the kinds of questions that a customer will have as a result of that, proactively enabling or answering a question that hasn't been asked yet about what to expect with a procedure, as an example. So they need more clinical understanding. So you may not hire a nurse, but maybe what we have to do is look at clinical understanding for non-clinical associates, more medical terminology, understanding the top types of diseases, disease outcomes, the types of test procedures, et cetera, with those diseases. We're going to see an increased skilling, as I mentioned earlier, around empathy. Really, how do you empathize when you've never dealt with that situation? We can be caring humans, but what are the kinds of environments that we can create as associates are learning and navigating to put them in a position where they can be truly empathetic and be poised under what can be a very emotional conversation? So with this, it really allows Anthem to, realize our mission, right, on how to improve lives and communicate in communities while simplifying the experience. So I think, with that, I'll turn it over to Claire.
And thank you. That was great. I think some of the things when you talked about, now that we've gone through the art of the possible, and thinking about what could possible, there's certainly going to be challenges ahead as we introduce AI into our work and our workforce. And now, Monica, I think we've got one more question for the group to ask to kind of get some feedback and see what challenges you see.
Thank you. Yes, another poll has popped up on the right side of your screen next to the slide deck, just above the Q&A, where you can certainly type your questions in. When that reads, what challenges do you see with AI adoption in your organization? And go ahead and check the top two. We have not knowing where to start, or resistance to change and new technologies. We have talent and skills gaps, or fear of job loss to a machine, or of course other. So go ahead and choose your top two. What challenges do you see with AI adoption in your organization? Knowing where to start, resistance to change, talent and skills gap, fear of job loss to machines, or other. Again, we value your feedback. So we'll go ahead and keep that open in just a few more seconds, and then I will turn it back over to our speaker who will address the answers. Thank you so much. Go ahead and check the top two.
Thanks, Monica. Okay, so here are the answers. Not knowing where to start, 17%. That's certainly a challenge. Lots of places you can. Resistance to change to new technologies. That is certainly one we see. And I think Anne's going to offer Anne can offer up some stories we'll get to here about on that topic. Talent and skill gaps. Definitely see those. Anne talked about, I think, Anne, what the story you told was not just about the technology part, but the empathy part, right? That's a big one. Fear of job loss to machine, 20%. That's certainly there. While this is very exciting for a lot of folks out there, especially when we have some tenured folks in our workforces, this may be a bit of a challenge for them. They may not be as excited, and then it sounds like there's some other ones out there. So definitely, I think what you're all experiencing or seeing out there is what we see as well. And hopefully we can start to answer give you some food for thought when dealing with these challenges ahead. So, knock, knock. Every workforce is changing. And, I think when Nick started out, our topic, what we're seeing here is this is almost like the fourth industrial revolution. And, what's really exciting about this is that we right now are at really a historical moment. This is a key inflection point. And now is the time to really take advantage of this unique challenge. Work as we know it, digital and data analytics and AI is pervasive and becoming even more pervasive in all we do. And from a workforce perspective, before, digital was kind of to the side. Well, we're now all having to be a digital workforce and a digital organization, and it's really becoming a part of how we work together. And certainly COVID accelerated that. And so it's really, how do we work together now and start to figure out how to use technology to supercharge our workforce and really amplify and how we provide services to our members, providers, employers is going to be a great challenge, and we need to start to address it now, or you're going to get left behind. So, are we ready? Well, not quite ready, but the good news is that I think we all are really starting to see this. And some of the data that we've seen out there is that, just under half of organizations are really starting to see that these new technologies are key to the innovation they want to drive in their industries. And I think the big one, which I find, really exciting about, is our leaders are now also seeing that we have to take steps to reimagine and use technology to reinvent the way we work, the way we service our people, and really, need to, innovate and drive business performance, and supercharge our workforce. And then finally, I think that skills gap. You all mentioned it. That we've got to really be rethinking about how we attract and build the workforce we need with the skills we need. So we've got this great power with AI and technology. Now we have this great responsibility. How do we use these technologies to unleash human potential? And I think even more important as leaders, how do we guide and prepare our workforce to use these new capabilities and these technologies? As I said, it's exciting, but it also can be daunting. So here are the four things you need to keep in mind. One is you really need to think about and reimagine the work. So how can we really rethink the nature of the work and we do it? And be willing to ask ourselves the tough questions. Can our products be more flexible? How can we really rethink how we deploy our workforce to do processes like re-enrollment? How can we redeploy them to maybe think about creating a better member experience? how can I elevate the human potential of our workforce using these new technologies to serve our stakeholders? The fourth one is really all about rethinking. How can we, how can we rethink the support structure supporting our workforce? It's not just roles and responsibilities, but how do we staff and resource accordingly? How do we create better HR practices? How do we reward and incent people appropriately? Having these in place will really help us to enable or supercharge the performance. And then rebranding, really engaging your employees throughout this process. It starts with having the right value proposition when you're trying to track that talent and throughout the employee life cycle, but then also thinking about, what does it mean for them? Bringing them along and doing that change management. This is a big change. How do you bring them along as you work towards designing the new future? And then finally, skilling and reskilling. It's really not just about teaching the technical skills of the workforce here. Certainly these are important around AI, data analytics, and the like. But I think, Anne, a lot of the things that you talked about with this empathy and the soft skills and the creating problem solving is really key. Anne, I think that you've been doing a lot of work in the QA space at Anthem that I think is very relevant here. I'd love to have you share your story.
Sure, and I love this one because it is very internally focused, but with an eye towards helping Anthem be even more successful, and it's very exciting. So we spent some time evaluating opportunities, so quality assurance picture, doing quality audits on humans, transactions, technology, are claims paying right? Are we enrolling properly? So, if you can, grievances and appeals, right? So all of the things that you can imagine in an ecosystem, and those things get audited so that you can determine, what you're doing well, where you have opportunities for improvement. Sample sizes are really important, and the like, right? So it's a very human heavy transactional kind of behind the scenes. And when you were talking about underwriters earlier and things like that, it really resonated with me because right now it's very, very manual. And what we found is when we had the question, so we started asking a lot, like, can that be automated? That like a lot of our change management has been, can that be automated? So that people can sit back and think, well, what does automation mean, right? It means maybe the machine is doing something for you so you don't have to. It does not mean that the human goes away. It is that machine, human in the middle kind of a process. And what we found in our quality organization is that, the associates really know where the issues are, where they are concerned about, hey, I have to move stuff from X to Y, then I have to do these manual calculations, and then the spreadsheet and the formulas, right? We all have that somewhere, right, in our workforces. And so we found that the associates really know where that is. And it's having the right conversation with them around, what if I could get that out of your workflow? What would that do for you? And many of the associates are like, please take it, because it's not interesting. It's not fun. It creates anxiety. And frankly, it gets in the way of the things that will allow associates to feel really engaged in their work and be able to use that subject matter expertise to do more root cause analysis, to have those insights, to be able to elevate more trending in information that can be very, very actionable. And so it doesn't mean that people don't approach that with some trepidation or maybe cynicism, but we found that by engaging them in the process, helping them understand that positive impact that we're trying to drive towards, that they were very welcoming for observation, analysis, looking at the workflows, serving things up and saying, hey, I think this is a place that could potentially be automated. And there's no, and it's okay if it can't be, but at least then they're thinking about it, right? But it allows them to really see where their time could be spent on things that are frankly more interesting and leverages their subject matter expertise, not to put information in a place, but to take that information and to create meaningful insights. And, working cross-functionally with business partners, IT, to not only elevate, but then to drive out some of those bigger issues. So we can also think about, too, upskilling, and this is kind of interesting around how maybe upskilling workers in simple automation, basic automation, to empower them. So if you could teach someone to do an unattended bot, for example, on a workflow that they have, then they start seeing those opportunities for automation everywhere, not just in the work that they do. And so that pride and ownership, being able to say, gosh, I'm not an IT person, but I learned how to do this and I did that, and now it took a 100-step thing and it made it a 5-step thing. And they just get super excited about that. So as we think about quality then and some of these things getting automated, what that does is it frees up capacity, right? And it also says, okay, I need people who do have those critical thinking skills, who can do the analysis and really thinking about what are those skills of the future, beginning to skill those associates now, having them to slowly get into that, while at the same time reimagining who am I going to hire? What skills am I going to hire for over time? So I don't wait until I get there to say, okay, we're opening up shop, everything's automated, what's the kind of worker I need, right? So it's a matter of identifying those skills that you need now, starting to skill people, setting that path for the future, beginning to work on your job descriptions, those kinds of things. What are you promoting when you're hiring? And starting to kind of fold in that skill set of people maybe walking in off the street with what it is that you're looking for. But it is not a one and done, right? So that continuous change management, really performing while you're transforming, keeping it in front of people, celebrating the successes, right? And so what I have experienced is that having associates really be a part of it, making that change, being instrumental in it has really helped not only uncover where our biggest opportunities are, but to celebrate that and to make it a very exciting thing versus something to be afraid of. So with that, Nick, I'll turn it back over to you.
Perfect, and thank you, Ann, and thank you everybody for listening today. We've got just about 5 minutes left. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them you can type them in. We're not able to take questions via voice. And, I would like to, we are starting to get some questions in, and let me answer, or at least start down the path of answering some of these. And I'd ask all of our presenting group here to jump in with me. First question is, or one of the first questions is, how would one differentiate member call center versus a provider call center? And so I think the way that I think about that is at its core, if you start breaking down the activities that call center, let's say reps have, you could start breaking that down generally in 3 categories. One is what are their soft skills, like empathy, listening skills, et cetera, et cetera. Those are going to be pretty consistent. A second breakdown of that is what are the technical skills. So, and what I mean by technical is not technology, but like their knowledge of their process and their responsibility in doing that specific job. And so you've got the soft skills, you've got the technical, and then there's just the understanding of how their role impacts the business. When I think about providers, the business purpose for talking with providers is different than talking to a member through a call center. and so the priorities that you would make on the different skills that you're looking for in those roles and how AI is going to support those roles is going to be a little different. Let me give you an example. If I were to leverage AI and machine learning to listen to the first 60 seconds of a member call, while I, as the call rep, am also listening and asking my introductory questions, AI could, through language processing and using the right algorithms, it could, I'm on my screen as a call center rep, make determinations on how upset is this individual, how which areas do we feel this individual's where their questions are going? Is there content that I can put in front of you? It is when they ask specific questions, or oftentimes they'll contextualize and ask multiple questions. How do those get sorted and organized? A skill set for a call center rep necessarily have today, but which could be developed into a superpower, if you will, would be the ability to, while talking to someone, asking questions, listening with empathy, be looking at your screen at information that an AI solution could be providing you, and then you analyzing what it's telling me to do, or telling me how this person or what this person might be looking for, or anybody who calls and opens a call this way and asks these questions, this is typically what they're looking for. If I'm able to use that information, I'm in a better position to provide that experience. But that's not an easy skill. That requires somebody who can multitask, who understands the big picture, who understands that an AI solution isn't giving you a perfect 100% answer. It's going to take you're going to have to create your own decision and action for that. And so that's just one example of, for a call center, I wouldn't be getting those kinds of calls from a provider, right? So on the provider side, I'm going to have different business purpose for the call, and therefore the skills that I might need may be less about empathy and more about process, for example. So, and I won't get into all those details, but that's the way I would answer that. And I don't know if Sarah Claire, if you have anything to add to that, or if we'll move on to the next question. I'll give you an opportunity here quick. Okay. I'm not sure if anybody's muted, but I'll give them one more second. Okay, we'll go to the next question, and I recognize we have 2 minutes left, and I really do appreciate the questions coming in. One question that there's a couple questions here that I think kind of overlap, and it has to do with advice on how to upskill non-technical workforce groups on AI. And I would this way. Organizations a little bit today, but for sure in the future, need to have a technical competence, and that's going to include AI. And so there are different levels of technical competence or technical acumen, AI acumen, that individuals are going to need. And you could think of it as a hierarchy. And without getting into all the details, I would just say not everybody needs to understand the programming that goes into AI, right? There are technical folks that need to do that. But I do think where AI becomes powerful is when you understand how AI works, where its flaws are, the fact that when you machine learning, you're using AI today is going to change a month from now because AI is going to learn. And there's just those general concepts, and there's this hierarchy of fundamentals through, I'll call it a technical competence to be able to program your own or provide input to it, or to provide feedback to the machine so it can learn. Those are all different scenarios. That is a way to think about that. I would just say this. Is all learning organizations, all people within an organization should be learning around their technical competence. It can be bite-sized learning, but should be learning every minute, every month, right? So it's not a one-time class. It's each month finding opportunities to expand your competence in tech and AI. I do realize we're at the top of the time. I definitely appreciate, got a lot of listeners on the call, appreciate that you're sticking around to the end here. And feel free to, you've got our contact information on there. If you do have any questions or anything specific that you'd like to get answered, you can always send an email. We would appreciate that. So again, I'll just say thank you to AHIP and to Monica, our co-presenters, and see you out hopefully soon. Be good. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for that great presentation and for sharing your thoughts. Thank you to the audience for participating in today's webinar. This concludes today's presentation. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.